Welcome to the Jeff Eby Show. Jeff Eby Show, where the talk is all about Dixon County.
Well, we welcome you to the show today where the talk is all about Dixon County. We are coming to you live from the beautiful downtown Dixon in the historic arcade. I'm your host, Jeff Eby. Please share this video right now if you're watching on Facebook, and like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate all the shares and all the comments that we've gotten. We are totally listener supported, and we need your help sharing these videos. Well, today we have a very special guest, and I'm really excited to welcome Justin Cornett. And he is chairman of a company called For All Inc. with the Tennessee chapter. So, Justin, tell us a little bit about this and kind of what y'all do.
So, we set out to answer the question, who lobbies for the little guys? Major corporations, governments, moneyed interests, special interest groups, they all have lobbyists, and we see how that it translates to legislation that affects us. But who lobbies for us?
Right.
Who works for the little guy? So we set out to create an organization that genuinely worked on behalf of regular folks and their interests.
Cool. Go ahead and give us a little bit of your background, kind of where how you got started and how you ended up where you are today running this company.
Well, I mean, the short story is I'm just a regular Joe. I'm got a sales background. Was raised Church of God. I'm a firm believer in God. I've been dabbling in politics for 10 years, always. I don't know.
So sorry, somebody's phone is on, Jeff. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
At any rate, I used to run a political organization out in Knoxville, and we were a pretty big group that was liberty-oriented. From there, I ended up taking a job with Americans for Prosperity and worked for them for a little while.
Okay.
After leaving Americans for Prosperity and seeing how they worked and what I liked and didn't like about the organization, I kind of brainstormed, and this is what we came up with.
Okay. Now, are you from Knoxville?
Right outside of Knoxville originally, yeah.
Okay.
Lenore City.
So you went to school in Knoxville and all that?
Well, I went to school, graduated in Lenore City.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
It's 15 miles from Knoxville.
Right. So you're a UT fan, I guess.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hopefully that's not a problem out here.
No, not at all. Not at all. So For All Inc., and you're the Tennessee chapter. So is that something that's national or
It's something that we're hoping that we can prove works here in Tennessee, and then spread that out as to other states. We think it would be a valuable addition to the political climate in any state that it operates in all honesty.
Right. So what you do is you work with state reps or state senators, and you develop these type of bills that works for all of Tennessee, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the goal. I mean, we got to be real. I mean, there's no piece of there's no idea that everybody agrees on.
Right.
What we're trying to do is find where we have the most consensus, and all the issues that we work are around empowering people or limiting government. So it's your liberty wheelhouse. It's the stuff that we hoped that this country would have become 200 years ago, 250 years ago when it was founded.
So you're not partisan at all?
Nonpartisan, 100%.
Right.
We actually have people from all political walks of life that are contributing to this organization in some way, from the extremes on both sides.
All right. Now, as far as your organization is concerned, how are y'all made up? Like you have a board of directors? How does that work?
We have a 3-person board. We have an advisory board, and we have a membership program. Okay. And all 3 of those groups have to approve any piece of legislation that we're working on. So,
all right. So how does the membership work?
So membership is $60 in a year, $5 a month, however you want to look at it.
Okay.
For that membership, unlike most organizations out there, so most organizations in this space, you throw money at them, and then they assess how much money they have, and they set their agenda, and you may or may not end up agreeing with whatever they decide to do ultimately.
Right.
We felt like that was a problem, and that is a deterrent from people participating in organizations that could possibly do good in our communities. So we tried to get around that. And to that end, we set it up to where all of our issues are broken out as individual things that you could donate to. So we might be working 10 different issues, and you would be able to donate to any one of those 10 things, or any number of those 10 things, or the organization as a whole. So you always know that your money's going to what you want it to go to. It's never compromised. You're never paying for something you don't want.
Right. So if I'm a member of your organization, how can my voice be heard then?
So what we're intending to do between now and October, November, that time frame, is throw as many issues as we can come up with that fit in the wheelhouse, empowering people, limiting government, in front of people with explainers, a handful of paragraphs explaining why these things are relevant and important. And what we're looking at doing is doing like 5 of these a week, and then at the end of the week, kind of run a survey, have people rank them, and kind of collect that data over time, and use that as an opportunity to kind of inform people about some issues that they may not realize that they care about, right, or find important because they didn't realize they exist. And then come November or so, we'll ask for a full vote from our membership, with all these different issues in front of them, and whatever they choose turns into a short list that the advisory board will look at, pare down, make sure everything's kosher with those things. And then all we want to do with the 3-person board is kind of assess what is workable and what is not workable. We're going to have a limited capacity to work bills. There's 1,500 bills that are introduced at the state level every year, and right, we're never going to be able to work all of them. But the more people we have that are willing to work the legislature with us, the more bills that we can work. So we're managing the workload at the top of it.
Now, so if you come up with an area that you think needs addressing, do y'all come up with the bill language? How does that work?
It'll be a mix. In some cases, there will be bills, or there'll be model legislation for a particular issue, or somebody else ran a bill year before last, and we can use that language, things like that. But there are some bills that we will write and have written, so it's a mix.
Right.
We actually had a guy who is a Republican county chair in East Tennessee that brought us a bill that he wrote, and it was a great bill. It surrounded blighted properties and how the state takes property, we talked to the advisors and the board and the members, and everybody was supportive of it, so we picked it up. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, we want the stuff brought to us. Right. If it fits in the wheelhouse, we're going to go to work for you.
Right. So if you're a member of your organization, then if I was a member, then I would call your organization and say, look, we've got a problem, I think an issue in my area I think we need to address, whether it be, what are some of the titles of some of the issues maybe that your members would be interested in?
I mean, it's such a big wheelhouse. I mean, when you think about it, limiting government is I mean, everything. I mean, everything that the government spends money on
Right.
is an opportunity to limit government. Police reform, criminal justice reform, protecting private property rights, the process inside the legislature that kind of dictates how bills move. I mean, all of these things are fair game for the organization. And again, it's a matter of what the members want. One of the more difficult things about being in my position is it's really hard to go and say to you or an organization that might want to partner with us on a piece of legislation that 100% we're going to go and work this bill, because again, it has to go through the members and the members have to approve it before we can work it.
Right.
So it complicates things a little bit, but I think the end result would be an organization that people feel like they can participate in, that can make a difference, where they have a say, and that combination of factors is something that you just don't get in politics in our day and age.
Right, right. Now you've got a board. What are some of the people that are on your board? What kind of work do they do?
The 3-person board, we've got myself, a marketing professional, and an accountant. The basic needs for an organization like this.
Right.
On the advisory board, I think we've got 4 city council people, a county commissioner, a county mayor, a couple lawyers, a couple professors at state universities, economics professors,
right,
particularly. So a wide range of people. And again, those people are from all kinds of political backgrounds and, positions. So,
right,
and that's the idea of the organization, is trying to figure out what the common ground is and where we can build those consensus.
Right, right. So, so y'all, I guess you get together as a group and you look at different things that you could do from obviously different perspectives, because you got people coming from all different kinds of backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And then you decide, okay, we're going to work this bill, and then you either start talking to representatives, go up on the Hill and talk to people and try to get some interest in this. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we are a big participatory organization. So yes, and we take the bills, we go to the legislature and we work them. But a lot of that is the clout that comes behind the people in the community getting behind these pieces of legislation. So to that end, we want to be able to get to a point where we can run a survey in any district and get 75% of the registered voters in the district to respond to it.
Right.
And we want to do constituent meetings. If you share interest in something that we're working, we want you to come to the Hill with us and talk to your legislator about that, because that's much more impactful than just some random guy out there, regardless of whether or not I've got a tie on in a business card. The reality is you're that person's voter, and that makes it more real to them.
Sure. We're going to go to break here in a second, but before we do, give us your social media handles. Where can people reach you?
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our website. Our website is foralltn.org. Okay. Facebook, it's For All Tennessee. Instagram and Twitter, actually, For All Tennessee is what you'd be looking for. So easy enough to find. If you go and look, you'll find a picture of me standing next to the Tennessee Legal Code.
Yeah, I saw that. That's like 8 foot tall or something.
Like 8.5 feet, 41,675 pages.
Wow. Does
not include court rules, public acts, anything that's passed by state agencies. Right. That's just the code.
Right. All right. All right, we're going to go to a break, and we'll be back here in just a minute with Justin Cornett.
You've spent years dreaming up your business plan, saving every dollar, searching for the right location, and perfecting your product. Auto Owners insures your small business, because it isn't small to you.
Only 36 more to go.
That's simple human sense.
Ask Eby Insurance in Dixon if auto owners make sense for you.
Well, we welcome you back with our discussion with Justin Cornett, who's the chairman of For All Tennessee, and it's the Tennessee chapter. And we're going to continue our discussion here. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe what's your organization's mission. What do y'all do?
Well, everything that we do at its core is about lobbying policy. And again, we are trying to work for the little guy. We're trying to do the Bernie Sanders model, do small donors, and get thousands, if not a million people here in Tennessee, and build a real movement of people that are engaged in politics, that can take interest in some of these more minor issues that we don't talk about because they're not the hot, flashy issues, but they are equally important, and in some cases even more important. And so we think that we can kind of change the dynamics of the political sphere. I mean, if you've read George Washington's farewell address, there's a section in there where he says, "Now let me warn you in the most solemn manner of the baneful effects of party generally." And if you read that section, it basically reads like prophecy right now.
Right.
I mean, he predicted the future. Everything he tells you that would go wrong if we divide ourselves into factions has gone wrong.
Right.
And the reason is because those are the two organizations that drive policy in our country. So if we can get an organization that can harness the power of large numbers of people here in Tennessee, then we can force a legislator's hand, regardless of which party they come from.
Right. You know, and it's been stated before, but all politics are local, you know. And the unfortunate thing is that, you know, we don't get enough people involved in our local politics. You know, we talked about this earlier about, you know, there's probably a very small percentage. Now, we've had, you know, our state representative and our state senator on, and I hope some people got, you know, a perspective of what they do and as far as in the political spectrum there. But, you know, and part of what we're trying to do here is to get more people involved, get people to know who their representatives are, and you know, engage in the political process. And with your organization, that's kind of what you help people do, to kind of get engaged in that.
Right. And we're trying to make it as easy as possible. You know, we're a brand new organization. We've only existed since like toward the end of January.
Gotcha.
So we're still working out a lot of kinks. We're still developing a lot of things. But to give you an example of something that we're trying to do to make it easy for people to participate, most organizations in this political space do a scorecard. Where they, you know, score representatives based off of their votes.
Right.
Okay. What we do is a report card. Okay. So we're working lots of different pieces of legislation, and then I might have one piece of legislation that's on Mr. Curcio's committee. But when I'm in his office, I'm going to try to get through all of the things that we're talking about and just ask him, how do you lean? What's your gut say on this?
Right.
And, you know, accurately reflect whatever they tell us. That way people have a better idea of where their state representative stands on any of the issues that we're working.
Right.
And on this report card that we have, and you can go and you can search your legislator and you can see where they stand on any of our issues. And we're trying to develop a little button that comes out from each one of the issues that will let you email the representative on the specific issue and ask them to support or oppose any particular piece of legislation that's on that list. And so you'd be able to go to the website, search your guy, there he is, those are the issues, there's the one you care about, send the email.
Right.
It's really as simple as that.
Yeah, you know, I was involved with the National Guard for 30 years, and they did a really good job of that, because they would send out these emails and say, okay, they're looking at this whatever this legislation is at the federal level and at the state level, and you could easily, you know, click a button to allow you to talk about whatever that issue is. So I think that's really good. That's something to have.
Yeah, and again, as we progress through time, we're going to get better at doing this and facilitating this. We've talked about putting my calendar when I'm working the legislature online. so that anybody can see it.
Right.
And if they want to go right along with me on to see any of their state reps, they can simply reach out and we'll set it up.
Right.
Go. So I mean, we're a very participatory organization. We are not high and mighty looking down our noses at people. We're regular people trying to make a difference, and we understand that all regular people need to get together if we're going to actually succeed in making a difference. And all we want to do is be the facilitators.
Right. We got a caller on the line. We got a question from a caller. How have you seen coalitions form when people who you wouldn't normally see agree for the greater good of Tennessee?
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens when you take the partisanship out of this. So I'll give you one example of what I think success looks like in our organization. We had a bill that pertained to minor party ballot access. For those of you who don't know, if you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent and you want to run for office in this state, you need to get 25 signatures from registered voters. Right. If you want to run as any other party, Constitution, Green, Libertarian, start your own Kanye West party, doesn't matter. The Patriot Party, if Donald Trump wanted to come in and start the Patriot Party, he's got to go out and collect 56,082 signatures. Wow. To give you an idea of how preventive that is, in Maine, the Republican Party was trying to get something on the ballot for a referendum this past session. Okay, they needed roughly 60,000 signatures to get there. They spent $750,000 and failed.
Wow.
Okay, so that's how big of a challenge this is.
Yeah.
Okay, versus the rest of the country, it's not even close. The average is around 10,000. There are half dozen or so states that require 0 signatures. Florida has 3 times of our population that requires 0 signatures. So this shouldn't be a controversial bill. I think most people in this country think that parties should be able to participate in politics even if they don't want to vote for them. Right. But nonetheless, on this particular bill, we were trying to make sure we had votes in subcommittee, and I had 2 reps in Northeast Tennessee and that were Republican, and 1 rep in Southwest Tennessee that was a Democrat. That we needed to switch on this bill, and I had a GOP SEC rep making phone calls to the 2 Republicans, and I had a Democratic Socialist making phone calls to the Democrat on the same piece of legislation. Right. They don't know that they're working together, right, but they are. Right. And that's a win, because this is a right thing. This is a right policy. It's absolutely not okay for, as George Washington noted, paraphrasing, for a party or parties to get in power and then cut the ladder out from underneath everybody else that would like to participate. It's not a controversial issue. And, we got both sides working together on it.
So that makes it almost impossible. If you're not a Republican or Democrat and want to run for an office, it almost makes it impossible to run.
It does. And I understand everybody's got different situations, but a lot of times when you sign on to either one of those parties, you become beholden to the party leadership and the money that feeds the party leadership, right, and all those different things. And it's why so many times we elect this guy that he's great. He's been in our community for a long time. He's super good on all of our rights and all these different things. And then he gets up there and he doesn't look like the same person. Yeah. It happens all the time, and it's because of the influences that they run into when they get up there.
Right, right. And that's really, it makes people upset that happens because, more times than not, during the campaign, people are saying whatever, and then once they get elected, it's like, okay, what happened to that?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
And I know it's because of money. Money drives everything. Yeah. And you have all these people that lobby for all these different issues that they want to happen, and it all comes down to money. Yeah.
The powers that be in this country, in everything, in politics, industry. It doesn't matter where you're at. They're entrenched, and they've set up systems that protect themselves, and we're not going to get anywhere until we tear those things down.
Right.
We're just not.
Right. So what makes your organization different, and, you know, what kind of obstacles are y'all facing, you know, going forward?
Well, what makes us different is a lot. I don't know that there's another organization out there that operates the same way that we do. I already mentioned membership. You know, lots of people give money to different organizations, NRA or whatever. But they don't give you a vote. They don't ask you what you care about. They don't ask you what your opinion is, and we do, and that's a huge difference in and of itself. We want the feedback from the community to help us figure out how to drive policy. So we crowdsource our policy. We are nonpartisan, and we are wholly committed to one principle. And that one principle is policy that empowers people and limits government. We think that every single person that lives in this country can think of at least one thing, probably more like dozens of things,
right,
that they are not free to do, that they think they should be free to do, or something that the government is doing that they think the government should not be doing. So then the question is, what do we want to tackle first? You know, what can we build that biggest consensus around? Right. And to that end, we don't get involved in elections. You know, we need people that get good people elected, for sure. But we want to be nonpartisan so that we can walk into these people's offices and just lay out the agenda, and then know that we're simply going to tell the truth. You know, we're not going to attack them for their positions. We're not going to tell people that they're bad guys because they oppose us, or that you know, you should vote somebody else in. We'll compliment. We'll put stuff on our social media saying thank you to the ones that support us, and you'll be able to see clearly on the report card the ones that oppose it. And when we think most of our issues are kind of stand on their own merit.
Right.
So,
right.
And then the last thing I can think of that really makes a big difference, or makes us quite different, is we separate our issues out. Like I said, so most organizations, you give them the money, they set the agenda. With us, we ask you what you want us to work, and then once we determine that, we put that out there and break it into every single issue that we end up working. And if you like one issue, give to that one issue. Right. If you like all the issues, give to the whole organization. If you like 5 issues, give to those 5. But it allows you to make sure that your money will not be spent on something that you disagree with.
Right.
When we put out quarterly reports, we'll tell you how much money's in each bucket. We'll tell you how we spent every month, all the money. I mean, we're trying to be 100% transparent. So.
The difference between, you know, you're I guess would be considered a lobbying activity, right? Yeah. But most lobbyists are paid by corporate organizations,
right,
and they have maybe one specific issue, or, you know, one specific area that they lobby for that corporation. The difference with y'all is that you're basically lobbying for the people.
Whatever they want us to do.
Right.
As long as it fits inside that mission statement, we'll do it. I mean, it's really that simple.
Right.
And yeah, you asked about the obstacles. The crazy thing is the biggest obstacle is that we're not a partisan. In a lot of cases, I've talked to people trying to get in meetings and things like that, and if you're not with us 100%, then you're obviously against us, which is not true, but it's the sentiment in a lot of cases, and that's been a little bit of a chore to deal with, for sure.
Okay, we're going to go to break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about some bills maybe that y'all have tried to get through the legislation and what that process is. So we'll be back here in just a minute.
You've dreamed about the perfect house, a place to call your own, and a place to not only stretch out, but to grow. Auto Owners protects your house because to you, it's home. That's simple human sense.
Ask Eby Insurance in Dixon if auto owners make sense for you.
Happy to help, man. I was just hoping to talk to myself anyway.
Welcome back. We're here with Justin Cornett from For All and the Tennessee chapter, and we've got a question that came in off Facebook again, and we're gonna talk about some of these with this segment here. But they were wanting to know what kind of wins you have gotten in the legislative process so far.
Well, wins kind of take a little bit of a different form.
Right.
They take a number of different forms. So we actually had a bunch of different wins, but we got 3 bills that we were working through. We got a bill that protects small businesses from being shut down by your county or city.
Because of the pandemic thing, right?
Yeah, it's the essential versus non-essential. So now your county mayor or your city mayor can no longer name businesses as essential or non-essential and shut them down on that basis. Right. Originally, the bill did apply to the governor as well, but that didn't go over so well with the folks higher up the food chain, so that bill got amended to exclude him.
And we were real lucky in this county. We have good leadership, and none of that really happened in this county. So we were really grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm in Wilson County, and that wasn't the case there.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a bill done, a really good police reform bill, and I mean comparatively speaking to the rest of the nation, it's one of the strongest bills that has been passed to reform policing, and it was a bill that was supported by the governor, the TBI, THP, sheriff's associations, everybody, you name it. They all collaborated on working the bill, and essentially enshrined some of the best practices that were already happening in the state.
Right.
But it eliminates no-knock raid warrants, the issuance of no-knock raid warrants, which was a really high hurdle in this state to begin with. It addresses shooting at moving vehicles. It addresses de-escalation training, chokeholds. It has a duty to report if an officer sees use of excessive force or hears of excessive force. They have a duty to report it. If they're there when it's happening, they have a duty to intervene. So hopefully, because of this legislation, Tennessee won't make the national news and turn it into Riot Central.
Was that passed?
Yeah, it was not just passed. There are 132 people in the House and Senate combined. That bill had 123 yes votes and 0 no votes.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was a really good bill brought by Mr. Curcio, y'all state rep. So a really good bill. We were really happy to have a piece of that. And then the last one we got through pertains to civil asset forfeiture. For those of you who may not know, criminal asset forfeiture is where, you're a drug dealer and you've made a whole bunch of money and then you get convicted. You're Pablo Escobar, and you've got this compound and all these cars, and now you're going to jail, and they're going to take all that stuff and they're going to auction it off, and they're going to put that money back in the community in some way. That's criminal asset forfeiture. Right. Civil asset forfeiture is the same thing, but they never have to charge you with a crime. No, they just have to suspect that the reason that you have $2,000 in cash in your car is because you're going to buy drugs, which may or may not be the case. You might be buying something off Craigslist. It's one of those things that was designed to kind of combat the drug war and fight the cartels. Real examples are, a semi truck that gets pulled over that's locked, and the driver doesn't have any idea what's in the trailer. But they open the trailer and they find, tires stuffed with cash that, dogs hit on because it smells like cocaine. Right. And that's what civil asset forfeiture is for. But in Tennessee, the average seizure is somewhere around $2,200. And you're not knocking down the cartels with that. You're hurting people that don't need to be hurt. We had a bill, like current law, or last year's law, I should say, since this has now been or taken effect, was that the seizing agency, the agency, the law enforcement agency that took your property, was responsible for reimbursing you on court costs, legal expenses, because These are administrative hearings. They don't go to a courtroom. But they would pay for the legal cost up to $3,000 or 25% of the property's value. If they impound your car and it's worth $2,200, that means you got about $500-600 to work with your legal team, right. And that's not going to get you anywhere,
right.
Right. So a lot of times you had people that were just waited out. Maybe they couldn't fight it, so they lost their stuff, or it was prohibitive for them to do it. So we got a bill passed. Jerry Sexton carried the bill in the House, and I believe that was Frank Nicely in the Senate. I can't swear to that. But the bill removes the 25% language and makes the cap $10,000. So theoretically, maybe we'll be hitting some more big-time people, because the question is, does a police officer impound a $2,500 vehicle at this point if they're possibly on the hook for $10,000 in legal costs? So we think that that's a really good bill that will help straighten out this particular procedure. It should have never been turned on public in the first place, but it was part of Nixon's war on drugs back in the day. Joe Biden actually helped author this and push civil asset forfeiture, because prior to that, it was only used for cases of piracy. It wasn't used on American citizens at all. So
let's remind people our phone lines are open. If you've got a question for Justin, just call in. Now, I remember a couple of years ago, there was a case, I think it was around Cookeville on the interstate, where a truck driver got pulled over and they seized I think $10,000 or whatever. And it turned out that he just had the money he was buying something or whatever. Yeah. But it took him 2 years to get the money back.
Yeah.
So does this bill prohibit that from happening, or? It
doesn't prohibit it from happening. It makes it less likely to happen to somebody that doesn't have $10,000. This process in Tennessee is not the best process. Again, it's not in a courtroom. Essentially, with civil forfeiture, they're not charging the person with a crime. They're charging the property with a crime. Okay. And because of the property doesn't have the same rights as a person, the property is not entitled to a court proceeding. So these things happen in an administrative hearing. There are only 3 or 4 places in the whole state where they have these hearings too. So if you're 6 hours away or 4 hours away from one of these things, that's your problem. Right. You still have to go there if you want to try to get your stuff back. But we've talked about trying to move these things into court, into a court of record. There's a district attorney out, I want to say Paris way, who doesn't do civil forfeiture, doesn't send them through the administrative hearings. He brings them through his court. We got a judge out in Smith County that has expressed interest in helping us write legislation to that effect.
Because a lot of people get hurt on these things, and they're innocent, kind of bystanders or whatever. Yeah. And it takes forever to get either money back or property back or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of anecdotes, and it's a really bad issue in all seriousness. There's a lady who got her mother died, and she got an insurance check, and she went and cashed the check. And she was going from that bank to her bank, and she got pulled over for a taillight. And there she is with $12,000. She must be going to buy drugs. There's no other reason that she could possibly have that money. Our sponsor on this last bill, or on that bill that got through, Jerry Sexton, has a personal friend who was affected by this in Texas. Apparently ran a nursery, took some cash to go and buy plants and bring those back to his nursery, and got pulled over in Texas and lost the money and lost his business. Wow. There was a big expose. I actually think I don't know if you know this, and you might be able to correct me on it, but I think it was the Drug Task Force that's based out of somewhere here near Dixon.
Our district, yeah.
Yeah, and with this expose that was done by one of the Nashville news stations, what they found was, drugs come in from, supposedly Texas or wherever they're coming in. So they come in from Memphis going into Nashville east, and then the money goes west out back to where it was. Well, as it happens, they didn't have drug busts, but they always found the money on the way out.
Right.
Now, if you think about that logically for a second, what that means is if they knew that this was going on and they knew where to find the money, then they knew where the drugs were coming into town. So they made the conscious decision to allow the drugs to come into town so that they could take the money on the back end.
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to have the DA on, and we'll probably discuss that a little bit.
Well, I mean, my understanding is that's older, and those people are no longer around anyway.
I think they've changed some rulings on that, and they're doing things different. I know some of those guys.
Yeah, I've been told that it's been cleaned up in large part out here, but or that Drug Task Force has been cleaned up. So, but yeah, that's a big thing, and it's a real concern. Do the police stop the drugs from getting in, or do they take $300,000 on the way out that they can use to, benefit the department? So
let's talk about some of the bills maybe that you have worked on in this last legislative session, and I think they're still doing some committee hearings and stuff now, aren't they?
Yeah, there's always stuff going on through the summer, but there's no real votes or legislation getting through. It's more summer studies and stuff like that.
Right. So what are some of the areas y'all are focusing on right now?
Well, this past session, I can't tell you what we're going to do next year because, again, we haven't polled the members. But this past session, we had 4 different bills that were applicable to civil asset forfeiture. We worked 2 bills that were intended to protect small businesses from shutdowns. Unfortunately, the weaker of the 2 got through, but we'll take whatever we can get.
Right.
We worked the no-knock raid bill. We worked a bill that was kind of the result of this TWRA story about cameras on people's property, and the guy takes it down and destroys it, and all of a sudden he's in trouble for destruction of government property. So it was a bill that would have prevented surveillance without a warrant on private property, which you wouldn't think you would need, but apparently we do. And we had a bill, the bill I mentioned earlier that the GOP chair in East Tennessee brought us pertained to blighted properties. In Tennessee, they define blight by area as opposed to the individual properties. So if you live in a neighborhood that's got 50 homes in it and one of them happens to be blighted, then the whole neighborhood can fall under a eminent domain taking. Right. So we had a bill that would limit it to the one blighted property or however many blighted properties they are. Couldn't get it out of subcommittee.
What was the opposition to that? Do you know?
It was weak. Basically, the opposition is if you have an area that is depressed, the property tax dollars that come out of that are not as good as property tax dollars that come after they take the property and redevelop it and put something that brings in more money. And more revenue. Right. It's legitimately a question of should people be able to keep their property if the city, county, or state can put somebody else on that piece of property that gives them more property tax. That's really the question.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to break, and we'll be right back, and we're going to wrap this session up with Justin Cornett.
Looking for someone to trust with your insurance? Everyone wants to keep a secure future for their loved ones in case of emergency. Eby Insurance. As an independent agent, we represent many insurance companies. Our role is to serve as a trusted advisor. We will consult with you to help you understand your needs before recommending the best combination of coverage, service, and value for your unique situation. We offer insurance services ranging from auto insurance, home insurance, business insurance, and life insurance as well. Isn't that amazing? We minimize the risk for your family now and in the future as well. We've got everything you need. For more details, visit www.ebyinsurance.com.
Welcome back to the show, and just remember that the call-in line is open if you've got a call for Justin to call in and ask a question, and we'll see what we can do to answer that. So we're going to kind of continue our discussion on the no-knock bill.
Yes, sir.
That one got passed, right?
Yeah, overwhelmingly.
So what does that actually mean for people here?
Hopefully it means that all these shenanigans going on in other states where, we have marching and protests and people burning and looting and all these things, hopefully they would have to find a different reason to do that here in Tennessee. The bill, again, it prevents the issuance of no-knock raids. It restricts chokeholds to use only when threat of death is there. It requires de-escalation training. It requires officers to intervene when they see excessive force or report it if they hear about it. So it's a very comprehensive bill that it protects the police and it protects the people in the community as well. And we really think that this kind of legislation will foster a new kind of relationship with people that have felt slighted by law enforcement in the past, and hopefully that will be the case.
Okay. And the other part of that, we talked a little bit about that eminent domain thing. I think Nashville kind of deals with that more than maybe a rural county or whatever, but I'm sure there's been some properties in Nashville that's happened to.
Oh, for sure.
With all the building and everything that's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, when we were in subcommittee on that bill, one of the representatives brought up the Gulch and how at one point it was, and I wasn't here when this was the case, so I can't speak to it like I know, but apparently the Gulch was a really rundown area of Nashville for a long period of time, and this process was used to go out and improve that area, and now it's a very money generating area. Right. So, I mean, I get the argument, but at the crux of that argument is, should the government be able to take something that rightfully belongs to somebody else simply because it will mean more money for the government?
Right.
And I think most people would argue no. So
right. So what of the other part of that? What were some of those other bills that you said that actually got passed?
Well, we did those, and no knocks, the civil asset forfeiture, and then the essential versus non-essential.
Gotcha. So give us that process. So like, y'all come up with this, work with this legislature, and then it's presented in the committee first, right? Tell us about that process.
So in both the House and Senate, you have committees before, subcommittees, and then full committees, and then the House vote. And the idea is it weeds these things out. It weeds out bad things theoretically,
right,
before it gets to a floor vote. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's a process that. There's a lot of latitude inside that process for particularly the chairman of those committees. One of our bills, we went into subcommittee with 5 of 8 people telling us they were voting in favor of our bill. And one of our guys got up and walked out, left us with a 4-3 majority. They called for the vote. Our 4 guys went for it. The other 3 guys opposed the bill, and the chairman slaps the gavel and says the nays have it. So we went and confirmed with our 4 yes votes that they did indeed vote yes, and then we got it in writing, and then we went back to the chairman and said, you called this wrong because here are the 4 yes votes that were sitting in there, all on paper saying that they did vote in favor of our bill. And his response was, I called it the way I heard it, and as far as I'm concerned, the bill's dead. And that we weren't the only ones that happened to this year. I don't know if you caught the shenanigans between the speaker and Bruce Griffey.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I mean, long story short, he had a bill that his constituents wanted him to bring, and apparently his bill suffered a similar fate to the bill that I was just talking about that we ran. So he tried to use the rules in the House to get the bill reconsidered. And when he did, the Speaker slapped him down, and the next day, Mr. Griffey's key card doesn't work to get into the office. No, it's a true story. His key card didn't work. He was taken off of the state website. He was taken off of all his committees. He wasn't allowed to vote. He wasn't allowed to participate at all for like 5 days. And then they reinstated him, and now we're all playing. Wow. You see it now. You'd never think it happened when they talk about each other.
So it was a little punishment, huh?
Yeah. I mean, there's the...
It's a shame that it works that way.
It is.
And my other question was, they don't do a roll call vote in those committees or not? So
in the Senate, every time they do a roll call vote. In the House, they don't. They do voice votes often. The way it works is the sponsor of the bill, if they want a roll call vote, they have to ask for it before they present the bill. Now, a couple of my bill sponsors have said that typically the chairman take exception when you ask them to do a roll call vote, as if you don't trust that they will do it fairly and stuff. So a lot of times they don't ask because the etiquette says you might offend the chairman. There's a lot of this minutia in there that happens that people underestimate. If you can be the most powerful guy in either chamber, but when you're sitting in front of that other chairman, it's all up to him. And if you upset him and you've got 5 other pieces of legislation that might be going through that committee, you can count them all as dead.
Wow. Wow. That's why people need to get involved in this process, to understand, how it works and, some of the shenanigans that they pull in some of these committees, even on the floor. A lot of times there's some shenanigans pulled.
Yeah. Yeah. We were hoping to organize a petition type thing that would essentially ask the House Rules Committee to make sure that every vote is on record. I mean, we send those guys there to represent us. The least that they can do is go on record for us,
right?
So that we can judge whether or not we want to keep them there. I mean, that's what our job is, and
so
we have to have that information.
So in a committee, when it's a yay or nay vote, they're not really on record as voting for or against.
If it's a voice vote, that's the case.
Right.
It just passes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, to say the very least. But we've talked to a couple of other organizations that have a following, and we think that we might be able to put a petition out there that would put enough pressure on the House so that they would change the rules and put everybody on record, same as the Senate.
Right. Right.
Hopefully.
So it just makes you wonder. And we talked about this a little bit about. Not necessarily statewide, but especially at the federal level, where you have these politicians that say, "Well, I'm going to do if I get elected, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that," and then when they get up there, it's like, "Okay, what happened to we're going to do this or we're going to do that?"
Yeah.
And I know a lot of that is money, because money drives a lot of what people support or what they don't support. And I'm sure in Tennessee it's that way too at the House level.
Yeah, I'm one that thinks that the strong majority of what politics and politicians do is around narrative creation. It's putting the story out there that sells your idea and tells you that the opposition's idea is a bad idea. And sometimes it's true, sometimes it's a little bit overkill and overreach and sensationalism, but we seem to be more concerned with the narrative and protecting the institutions, right. the specific groups that put your butt in those seats, right. And less about being responsive to the people that actually voted to put you in those seats.
At the state level, I know at the federal level, just about every vote is straight down party lines.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's sad that it's that way. Do you see that same thing in the House?
Yeah. I mean, if you want a bill passed, it's probably not a good idea to get a Democrat to sponsor the bill.
Wow.
They get things through occasionally, but it hurts. I've had bills where I would go and talk to Democrats and ask them to support the bill, but not to co-sponsor the bill, because if they put their name on it, then all of a sudden it might turn off Republicans.
Yeah, that's horrible to think of.
It's the partisanship up there is crazy, and I give you one fun example. There's a particular state rep, I'm not going to mention her name, but she's widely considered as one of the most progressive folks out there in the legislature. And she's one that wears the attacks from the right as a badge. And you go to the legislature, and every legislator's office that you walk in, and there's desk where the legislative assistant sits, and then you go behind the legislative assistant's desk and you step into another room where the actual legislator's office is. It's true for 98 of 99 reps. The 99th one apparently upset the wrong folks in leadership, and she doesn't have a legislative assistant, and they literally put her in like a 4x8 closet.
Yeah, I saw that was on the news actually last night.
Was it really?
Yeah, they interviewed her a little bit, and she was at her office. She was going like this because that was about the width of her office.
Well, in fairness, she's got a wingspan too.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it's crazy, and you know, she's one that she's actually from the Knoxville area, and I've sat
she's
down,
from Knox County, right?
Yeah, I've sat down and had hours-long conversations with her about, you know, our different political ideologies and, you know, why I'm right and she's wrong, basically. You know, we've developed a really good relationship where I can walk into her office and say, I'm with you on this, and I am absolutely against you on this, and how's life treating you?
Right.
And we can still be friends.
Sure.
And that's the way that we want to do this organization with everybody.
Right,
so.
right. And we would hope that, you know, maybe at some point the opposing sides can get together and still, you know.
I mean,
because some of the things why would they be against that? You know,
right?
I mean, it's going to help the people of Tennessee. I don't understand. It's saying the same way at the federal level, though. You know,
I think there are, you know, a handful of issues that really, really divide us into partisan groups, you know, abortion and healthcare and immigration and things like that. And those are very important issues that our organization's probably not going to be working on because they are so heated. And there's so many people out there already working on those things, you know. But there's 1,500 bills that are introduced at the state legislature every single year. I mean, what percentage of those bills do you think take away rights from you?
Right.
I mean, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90?
Yeah.
You know, so we want to kind of watch out for that stuff, the stuff that trickles through behind the scenes when everybody else is looking over here at this big, shiny issue.
Right. All right, we're kind of wrapping up now. What do you want to say to the folks listening? You know, here's how you can help out. You know, obviously getting involved. We want everybody to get involved, especially when they go into session. You know, next year, you know, you can actually go to the Hill and go into these meetings and see what's going on. And I know people work, and that's a hard time to do, but you can actually listen back on some of the sessions on how things are done. And people just need to get familiar with how these things happen. And you kind of help people navigate through that a little bit. Yeah,
we put a lot of content out there. We put subcommittee hearings out there in the raw because, you know, we're not one of these groups that wants to take that one talking point and take it out of context and make somebody look bad. You know, we think the truth stands on its own, and we can win with the truth. You know, maybe we find out we're wrong, but that's not happened yet. And I think people are looking for somebody or looking for something in politics that doesn't constantly feel like it's lying to them or manipulating them. And I think that's what we've got. But yeah, we need everybody that can get involved to get involved. The bottom line is the more people that we have, the more power that we have at that legislature. We're not going to agree on everything, but again, you never have to give money to anything that you don't want to give money to. And I guarantee you that most of the stuff that we're going to work, everybody's going to agree with. I mean, I've shown a short list to a number of people on both sides of the aisle, and they all agree with 70, 80% of it. They disagree over a small handful of it, and that's fine. Let's get the 70 or 80% of it done, and then we can talk about that 20%, you know?
All right, where can people reach you again?
Go to foralltn.org. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. Info@4alltn is an email that generally goes to the organization where I see it. My executive director sees it, and we can take action on it. If you want to participate, you want to volunteer, you want to help, you want to donate, we need all those things. The fact is, we can work around this one principle, and we can get a lot done if we do it together. But we can't get anything done, and everything stays the same if we can't get a lot of people working together. So,
well, we really appreciate you coming in and talking with us. I know we've just kind of scraped the surface a little bit. So as the session starts back up, and as some of these bills, will you come back and kind of give us an update?
I would love to. It
on?
was a privilege to do this. I appreciate
Awesome.
you having me. And yeah, I'd love to come back and talk to you anytime you want about it, whatever you want to talk about.
Good deal. Well, we thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion today. Please join us Thursdays from 11:30 to 12:30 for an insight into how Dickson County operates and discussion with various leaders in our community. Please share this video if you're watching on Facebook, and like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and leave us a comment about what you thought about the show. We are totally listener supported, and we need your help sharing these videos. Also, please visit our website for upcoming guests and visit our store for hats, t-shirts, coffee mugs. We just hope you have a great rest of the week, and remember, Jesus Christ is King. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Jeff Eby Show. Join us next Thursday morning at 11:30 for more conversation about everything Dickson County. And keep up to date at thejeffebyshow.com.